Hello and welcome to the March 27th, 2024 Environmental Management Commission meeting. In Hilo, we have commissioners. I can barely see the pictures, so if you guys could go around the room and identify commissioners in your district, appreciate it.
So I'm Jim Beats from District 1.
Gonzalo Garcia, District 7.
Aloha, Laura Ocasio, District 2.
Okay, anybody else?
Aloha, Dot Norris from District 8.
Dot. That's everybody in the room in Hilo? I'll go at least on my Zoom. I'm Georgine Adams from District 9 and chair of the Environmental Management Commission. Next, I see Lee McIntosh. Introduce yourself.
Lee McIntosh, is it?
You always forget your district.
Because it's changed. 6.
6.
Right, yes, District 6.
Okay. And I think that's it for commissioners at the moment. Delatsuka is absent, I know. And Erica Perez, I assume, will be joining us later. Okay. So I call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is the minutes from the last meeting, February 28th. And I understand we have correction to make just in the header information to eliminate reference to Hilo Zoom. I believe the meeting was in Kona. But could I have a motion to adopt? Ocasio, second.
I'll second.
On the minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dot. So with the correction, are there of the header information, are there any other corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, could I have a vote to accept the minutes? Everybody say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are accepted, and Peter, sir, will make that correction.
Abstaining.
Okay, I'm sorry, we have one abstention.
One abstention?
Yeah, Gonzalo Garcia, I was abstaining just because I wasn't present, so I can't.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sure, 5 ayes.
All right. The next item, statement from the chair. I want to thank very much for Dot chairing the meeting last time. It sounded like an excellent meeting. I was sitting in the Honolulu airport trying to hear and not talk. And I must say that was the most frustrating thing of my entire life, not being able to talk during one of these meetings. But the meeting went well. It was a lot of good information and discussion. And I thank you, Dot. And I will have no qualms whatsoever missing another meeting because I'll know you can handle it. I don't believe we have any statements from the public. Moving on to item 4. Do we, Peter? Is there anyone?
Testimony, but there may be some oral testimony if someone wishes to speak.
Okay, asking the question, is there anyone on the line who would like to present testimony?
Possible to do testimony after the agenda is brought up?
You can present testimony at the time we discuss a particular item of your interest or up front here. Would you like to wait until we get to the item you're interested in?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Who is this?
Jerry Maderis from Hilo.
And which item do you want to speak on?
Six, I guess, the report. So
I'm sorry, say that again.
agenda item 6.
Item 6. Okay, I'll get back to you and catch me if I forget. Certainly won't be my intent. We are, if possible, would like to change up the order of new business that's on the agenda because, as you may see, Ashley Kirkowitz from the County Council is present to talk about item 3, which is a new bill introduced to the council, Bill 140, dealing with having a minimum number of days that are open for transfer stations. And Ashley was able to come this morning, but only if we let her get going fast. So Ashley, if you would like to give us some background on this bill, and then we could have some discussion.
No problem. Mahalo nui, Chair Adams, for taking this out of order. Aloha, Commissioners. My name is Ashley Kirkowitz. I'm the council member for District 4, which encompasses Lower Puna, Hawaiian Paradise Park, all the way down into Kalapana. Last week, our office introduced Bill 140, which is to require that there be a minimum number of days that transfer stations on Hawai'i Island are operated. As you know, the Kalapana transfer station is only open 1 day a week, that is Saturdays from 9 to 4, which isn't always the most convenient time for families to get to the transfer station. There are a number of folks that have moved into Lower Puna, and so this would ensure equitable access to an essential county service. Just to put things into context, other transfer stations are either operated 3 days a week or 7 days a week around our island. This bill would allow for any future transfer stations to be operated for a minimum of at least 2 days a week. We would certainly entertain if the commission would like to establish it to be 3 days a week. One of the things that we heard during our committee meeting when this was first introduced was the desire to also ensure that recycling services be added to this ordinance. So that is something that we will be doing in committee. But in also speaking to members of our community, they see this as an opportunity to really build out essential services that would support the community, including having demonstration projects around mulching and composting. And so just putting it out there for the commission to deliberate on, and looking for your favorable support and recommendation on this. Council members are required to send bills that have anything to do with environmental management to the commission and the director for their review as part of our deliberation process. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So as I understand it, we have 45 days from the day we were noticed that there is this bill to provide comment. So we should be able to come up with comment and even approve it for at the next meeting if we need to, if not now, at least verbally. So I see Erica Perez has joined us. Welcome. She is your district representative, District 4. Are there questions or other commentary that we could get perhaps from DEM on the impact of this proposed bill? Otherwise, I'll jump in with a couple of thoughts. One question is whether I listened to the hearing on 140, and I was not quite clear on whether there were times when there was stuff was left in the container at Kalapana and not picked up within that week, the Saturday, I guess, that it was open, so that there may be some festering waste, if you will, sitting in that container for a long time. So what's the pickup schedule, I guess, to DEM for that container? Do you wait till it's full or do you pick it up weekly?
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me well, Georgia?
No,
Let me see if I can get my.
that's my Kaha trying to speak.
I'm so sorry. This is my first time from this computer trying to get on. I apologize. I'm trying to get my computer.
I know, try to yell at us.
I don't want to do that. Let's see. Come on here. Is that any better? I'm not sure if this is better at all. You know, I'm gonna try to call back in and then do it from my phone instead. I apologize. Let me try this again.
Okay. So the issue is that Kalapana is currently only open 1 day a week, and to open it 2 days a week would mean adding service at cost, or there's a potential for reducing service at other transfer stations. However, the logistics work out. Are you contemplating actually providing funds to increase another day's service to Kalapana?
I mean, that, you know, that's certainly the council's prerogative, and we're moving into budget season now. We have budget hearings the second week of April. And so we can, you know, figure out from DEM leadership what the, you know, cost considerations are for that. You know, 3 days of service would be ideal, and that would match other communities around Hawaii Island. DEM, I think you heard during the committee, was concerned about not there being enough trash being generated to kind of justify opening up additional days. And, you know, I kind of want to pick that apart a little bit. I think a lot of folks are having to go to other transfer stations because Saturday is not convenient to them. So we might see an increase at Kalapana and a decrease in other transfer stations if it were open up 2 or 3 more days a week. I know that the director had also mentioned wanting to invest in smaller sort of trailers for the trash. And so again, that is something that we are absolutely looking to invest in if it means, you know, opening up service to that Lower Puna community.
And once upon a time, I recall seeing a DEM table of the costs per ton or pounds, whatever it was using, to pick up trash at each transfer station. Were you able to find that, Mike? Now I can hear you all.
You're muted.
He's muted. Yeah.
You're muted. Take yourself off mute.
Is that better? Sorry about that.
Oh, yes, that works great.
Technology. I don't have that information with me. I actually have that. I sent that over to the department, and I didn't retain a copy for myself. I apologize. I feel like I'm a little bit unprepared. Still willing to be on this call and try to answer as much as I can. I think if I can just skip back real quickly, you asked the question earlier about how often the solid waste was removed from the site. Currently, it's removed on the day that we are open. We don't leave anything there.
Okay.
And there is a cost balance sheet. I'll get that over to Peter, and maybe Peter can provide that over to the committee.
But I think that's...
Chair, can I ask Mike a follow-up question?
Oh, sure.
Thanks. Mike, you know the trash from Kalapana, do you guys transport that directly to West Hawaii, or is that added to what is hauled from the Pahoa transfer station? Again, I'm trying to think like creatively about how we might kind of cut costs and environmental impact vehicles on the road.
It's taken straight directly to the transfer station, the one in Hilo, the sort station.
Thank you.
Have you thought about actually getting together with other nearby communities to see whether or not they donate a day to Kalapana? cut back to 6 days a week?
I have not. You know, Pahoa is open 7 days a week. And again, it is a growing community in Lower Puna. And so we do appreciate having this service available.
Well,
I feel like a lot of sacrifices are already being made by just having 1 day a week.
And I'm just looking at what are the options to basically not increase costs. There may be a case where other stations that are open 7 days a week are a little more generous than are needed. And I think that says, back to Mike, we'd need to see the numbers. How much are you picking up? Is there overflow happening at these places that are 7 days a week open? Or is there room to skip a day, for example, in Kayao or Pahoa, or wherever?
Yeah, that same question was asked by the council. I'm not certain if that was provided to council. Let me see if I can pull up on my end. I'm on my phone, so I'm not I don't have the computer available to me, and I apologize for that. But okay, so I'm so sorry. I'm looking at something that you guys aren't looking at. There, you know, I would start with this. That's a question that I would leave to the council people. I mean, when we start looking at taking away services, you know, I can provide the data, I can provide how much tonnage is and whatnot. That's going to be a tough one. The nearest, I can tell you what the nearest tonnage is for the year is in Pahoa and Keao, as opposed to Kalapana over a year. You know, in a year at Kalapana, and this is on average, this is over the last 11 years, from 2013 to 2024. You know, we average right about 546 tons every year. It's about 47 trips every year, as opposed to Pahoa, which we have two chutes that take in residential trash, but collectively they do 7 days a week. We do about 5,100 tons of trash every year. That's roughly about 600 trips a year, closer to 700. And then when you look at Keao does about 8,000 as opposed to the 6,000 to 7,000 in Pahoa. Keao does about 8,000, 8,200. And they do, again, about the same amount, about the 600, 620 to just about 680, 690 trips a year. So that's the nearest ones. And, you know, to decide whether or not that's too much or too little, I can give you the numbers. I can tell you what we're doing in comparison to Kalapana. And the harder task is trying to decide whether or not you want to take a day from those sites. I don't think that that's what Ashley was looking for in this in the bill. The bill is suggesting that each site at a minimum should remain open 2 days. So I can speak to that if that's what you guys are asking about. And this worksheet that I'm looking at, I'm sure that we'd be more than happy to share this with you folks as well, so that you guys can deliberate same as we do here in the division.
Mike, what is the tonnage that is created at transfer stations that are open 3 days a week? So in the more rural communities.
Sure. So we can let's see. Let me look. So in Volcano, which is in Hilo and Glenwood, in Volcano we do about 1,100 to 1,200 tons each year. Glenwood does about 1,600 to 1,700 each year. Volcano is, you know, in terms of trips, again, Kalapana is about 47 trips every year. In Volcano, we're talking about 282. and Glenwood about 132. We can look at some of the Hamakua sites if you want, Ashley. I can. Okay, so I'll give you starting in Papaikou and then working our way out to Honolulu and Lapuhoi. So in Papaikou, we do about 1,500 tons every year, and that equals out to about 120 trips a year. The next station heading out to Lapuhoi is Honolulu. That one does about 950 to 960 tons every year, and that's about 75 trips a year. And then with Lapuhoi, that is, okay, sorry, I have to highlight this. And Lapuhoi does about 884, and they do about 78 trips a year. So those sites are a little closer to Kalapana as far as the trips. You're talking about the 40 trips as opposed to 70 trips or 80 trips. So a little bit on par. And so you can kind of see where the trips equal out to the higher tonnage.
And how many, sorry, Chair?
Yes.
Commissioner Ocasio, how many days is Laupohoi open, for example?
So the last 4 stations that I spoke on were 3-day-a-week sites. Only Kalapana is 1 day a week. There is no other station on the island that's 1 day a week.
Thank you.
So the last comment I'll make here is that in the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan for 2019, I was on that committee, we did recommend that DEM consider closing some days or even some transfer stations. So we were open to that as a possible way to manage resources and money. Evening it out, I have to say personally, providing 7 days a week is somewhat of an entitlement, if you will, and backing off someone to 6 days a week and figuring out how to manage the logistics to add an additional day to Kalapana seems a reasonable way to do the trade-off. And I think it comports with what is in the Solid Waste Management Plan. Erica, you have a comment or question. Go ahead.
I do. Thank you so much. Just recognizing the need for solid waste management, I was just trying to think of ways to, to do this strategically without having to cut calls in order to bring on another day. I mean, I know that in Puna, when transfer stations are closed, even if it is for a day, rubbish piles up at the gate. And I know that that's not a good habit for our community to see it into, but it is still what we see. And then somebody has to manage that. And so I was just wondering if there has been thought towards maybe even just a phased approach of opening, a day more out in Kalapana. So you're not going from like maybe 1 to 3 days, but you are going 1 to 2 days and kind of seeing if a third day is needed. But more so looking for areas where we can get funds to be able to support additional days. Is that rather than cut, basically, is there thought being made to get funds to support the need rather than cutting other places?
So,
is that a question,
Erica,
Ashley or Mike or both?
I was just going to say, I wasn't sure if that was directed to the division or to Ashley, but I think that, from my point of view, since we're talking, the division is here to provide, a budget that works for the public, provide the services. If there is a decision that we need to look at providing more services, I think the department has said on a number of different occasions that what we think, you know, looking at the population and just being on par with similar communities, instead of looking at island communities here on island, but looking at the Maui, Kauai, Honolulu, so that that would be kind of where we would be looking at. I think Kalapana would be better served with something nearer to a curbside collections where you can get the recycling that you're asking for. You can get the pickup service that you're asking for, and you know, it'd be something that you know that would make better sense. You know, just kind of taking a look at what we look at in similar sized communities, not just here on island. It is a little bit more difficult when we are talking about comparing communities to communities because, you know, each one of us has families kind of around the island, and they don't all have what we're talking about here. So meaning that um you know, I know it feels like that we're not providing equity.
You cut out, Mike?
Um, so it's you know, I know that Director Mansour has mentioned on a number of different occasions that that is his from when he first got here back in 2020, 2021 into currently. It is something I was not as big as a believer as I am now. I've spent the last 2 to 3 years looking, speaking with my colleagues on the other islands, and it kind of checks off all the boxes from the standpoint of the tax base to providing the services for these communities. When you're talking about Kalapana at 167 people to Seaview, which is Seaview Kalapana, which is another 500 or so people, total 600 or so people. You know, you want to kind of take a look at how do we serve those people. And yeah, I think that to me, if you're asking the division, um, I'm just concerned about when you make a rule or law that requires us to hit a minimum, and I just I know that on so many different occasions for things that are outside of our control, when we can't hit that 2 day minimum, it it does make it very difficult for my guys to then say that we didn't meet the law. I do have some concerns and reservations about having something in place when you have that. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a few other things that but then again, if this is something that everybody wants, we'd be going back and the let me just say right up front, the council has been um honestly, they've been really, really helpful to my division to get bodies and equipment. And I don't, I don't, I'm not here trying to suggest that they haven't been. I just, if this is what they want, we can get that. We can get that. It is gonna. You can't send a half a body somewhere. You're gonna have to bring somebody on full time, and you're gonna have to get equipment to provide that. Again, 400 tons a year, 40 tons a month, 10 tons a week, 4 trips a month, right? 10 tons a week. Sometimes even less. My trailers carry 20 tons at a minimum. So I just want to be really careful about, when we're making any long-term decisions there. That's all I want to share. And I know that the Director Mansour has joined us. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Ramsey, did you want to add anything?
No, I was here. I just went and grabbed my coffee. So I have been listening. I mean, it's great discussion, to me is where does the county want it to go? With diversion, recycling, waste reduction, operational, and new technologies. It's emerging discussion all over the country, right? How could we divert, how we could reduce, we've been talking about possible legislation to prevent certain products and banning certain products. And I think all that comes into play, right? And maybe this is the great time to talk about all of these issues. I understand the need for services, and if it's diversion, recycling, open the facilities more, accessibilities, but all that comes at a cost. And we all know that, right? Because currently our budget for the solid waste come, I think, around 4% to 5% of the entire county operation. So that equivalent to become a status quo every year of 38 million, $40 million a year. And that's to cover the current status quo operation, and has been over the years. So anytime we add program, we're going to ask ourselves, where does the money need to come from? I know in the discussion with EMC earlier, is you guys were entertaining collecting fees at the the transfer station. Somehow we need to subsidize the system, because currently it's within our charter. To me, and I've been very outspoken about solid waste, it needs to be enterprise fund, because it's subject to services. If people want recycling, then that people have spoken, and we need to adjust the fees to allow for services. But to continue getting 4% of the county operation fund, or 5%, and continue at providing more services for the same basket of money, it's impossible. So I think we need to look at it from, where does the county want it to go with this program? Do we need to continue collecting waste only and allow for more waste to generate and fill up our landfill faster than what plan? Or should we invest more money into kind of restricting, diverting, and recycling programs to expand the lifespan of the landfill? Look at city and county. They cannot even site a landfill. And right now there's legislation talk about, it's hard to build a landfill. So if we're gonna get out of the solid waste business to 100% zero waste diversion, we're gonna start somewhere. And I think that's the discussion we need to have, rather than just, we could, like Mike put it perfectly. We're here to serve. And I know I keep saying it, and council member, but it all costs money, right? Because the demand is so high on diversion, recycling, saving the landfill, stop, carbon emission on the highways, from east to west. All these come at a cost. Nothing is going to come without a cost, given the status quo for the last 10 years, right? So it's mission impossible. Unless enterprise fund, then you could go back to the public and say, what do you guys want to do? And let the people speak. Let the people speak and choose the program they want it. And if they're willing to pay for it, then let it be. But currently, the way the system is set up, to get a status quo percentage every year, but yet the demand of the public more, I don't know. It's just like tying somebody's hand, throw them in the water and tell them to get out of that water. It just, like I said, it's impossible, but there is a lot of discussion we need to have, and that's why we're doing the operational analysis. Because I'm looking at the forest. If I want to look at the tree, I may lose focus of that forest. But if we want to look at the trees for the meantime to do this and that and not have the vision, 10 years, 5 years down the road, we're going to say, well, why the heck we're in this position? So, but like I said, it's a great discussion. I still we need to sit down with Ashley and have a creative solution as we work the numbers and services. Like they suggested, maybe one of the other facility may, instead of 7 days, 6 days, and give additional day to Kalapana. When we look at these things, we look at it from every aspect. We look at it from a dollar. We look at it from location, convenience, because we only given so much money to manage the operation, and that money doesn't expand every year, right? So, and something's going to give for other to take if we want to stay within the same restrictions we have. But we are very creative. Kudos to our staff. Like Mike said, we need to do it more efficient, how to go about it with the number we have, the maybe smaller equipment, maybe have another half body. We looked at that. We're looking at probably just to start maybe $80,000 to $120,000, and just to start without the equipment. And then after that, probably we're looking at a cost of $40,000 a year to have a person there, and we could charge his time or her time to other facility if we just want to bring that additional day. We went through the same exercise when we did Ocean View, but Ocean View has more tonnage. Before Council Member Miley David had left, we added, during the budget process, we added that additional day for Ocean View, and we gave an estimate. I mean, we could go through the same process for Kalapana this budget year and submit a cost and include it in the budget, and we go through that route. But like I said, if we're not taking any other days, but goes back to the forest. If we focus on the forest and we're going to achieve, diversion. I remember resolution, was it 73 by 2026? That was passed by County Council, where we have to divert and have plan. So we cannot defeat the purpose if our intent to stay focused on maximizing the lifespan of the landfill, divert, recycle, and reduce. So that's all I have to say, but it's great discussion. I know with the great minds here at the meetings, at the commissions, and council members and us, we'll find a solution, no doubt.
Erica, you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on some of what Ramsey's saying, and in that I understand and resonate with a lot of it. I also, I continually, in many discussions around waste, whether it be solid waste or wastewater, hear the reasoning of us not making advancement is because, one, we either can't afford it, or two, we don't have capacity to be able to do it. And I think that if these two reasons continue to come up within our waste management practices, to me, what it sounds like are systems changes that are needed. And so I just hope that as we like continue to have these conversations, that it's not like a one or the other discussion, that it's like, how do we navigate? If it is costs and finances, how do we navigate that in order to continue to provide service? But I just really, I find it disheartening when we, and I mean we, the broader, like across the state, when we continue to use that we don't have government capacity and that we don't have funding to provide service, but yet we continue to grow and develop here. I have a hard time with that. And it seems like a disconnect. And if it's systems change that's needed to address that and make that bridge, then hopefully the discussions can start to go in that direction.
And
I could weigh in here.
Well, yeah, Ashley, I also, I was told that Jim Beats had raised his hand, but Ashley, you go ahead. You've got to disappear.
Okay, thank you. I do. I'm supposed to be at something that started at 9 that I committed to over a month ago. So thank you. I really appreciate the discussion. Couple of things. You know, Erica, when you were talking about the county saying we don't have money, the longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to you. That this year, every year, we are supposed to be getting a fund balance report from the administration. This year, our fund balance is $132 million. We can afford an extra day of service for Kalapana. These are residents of Lower Puna that pay taxes like everybody else. They do, and they deserve equitable access to resources. It's not just about how much it's going to cost the county, but think about the negative quality of life that folks in Lower Puna are having to live with because they do not have access to this service. On the fund balance piece, $132 million, we can afford 1 or 2 more days of service in Kalapana Transfer Station. Last year's fund balance was 70 million. The year before that was 50 million. So if there was ever a time to really start moving the needle on solving problems that we had been plagued with for decades, this is the year. I also want to point out that we are sitting on $60 million of ARPA money, American Rescue Plan Act money. This can be used to do pilot projects that Ramsey is referring to. We can use that as leverage to then establish proof of concept, do things like curbside pickup and all that stuff, and then secure other resources from state and federal government. Money is out there, but the key is making sure that we've got champions within community and government working together to make it happen. And I'm here with you, Ramsey, 100%. We also have the Kalapana community that is pining to be part of the solution. They don't want a place to just throw away their trash. They want to think about ways in which we can be, you know, diverting it, recycling, repurposing. How might we connect with Hawaiian earth recycling to get composting and mulching happening there? We want to be part of the solution and work towards that zero waste future we've architected for ourselves.
I agree.
Thank you. Jim, did you have comment as well?
Just a quick question, Jim Beats, District 1. Ramsey, great information, really appreciate that. My question is on the operational analysis. When is that to be completed?
Projected to be completed by end of October this year.
And will that include topics like landfill closure and cost and monitoring of landfill sites that have been closed, transportation cost and savings, those kinds of topics?
Yeah, they looking currently at the current operation, they analyzing the current system and provide recommendation. So they're looking at multiple facets of, you know, how to improve the operation. So they're looking at our current 20 plus transfer station, 1 landfill that's going to reach capacity within 20 years. And we don't want to get there because it takes about 12 years to site a new landfill. So that's the reason we're doing it, just to have better roadmap of having to make decisions now that could prevent us from regretting later, at least attempt to put the lay ground or roadmap and plan it better. So it become like our master plan eventually of, you know, how we're going to get there.
Yes, those are all excellent points. Who is conducting the operational analysis?
It's Element Engineering. It's a consultant that we retained.
Thank you. All the questions I have for now.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I think we need to start wrapping this one up.
This is Commissioner Garcia.
Go ahead.
District 7. So, you know, I came out of the private sector, and so my question is, and it's a very common practice, is to do Lean Sigma type analysis on trucking, you know, different variables and all that. And I've actually been trained to a certain level, but when you do a Lean Sigma analysis, I think it can find very dramatic ways of reducing costs in one area and figuring out how to optimize. If it's just the hauling, you could look at it, you could look at the whole program. Is that part of the operational study? Are they doing any Lean Sigma type of analysis?
The second phase, we already have another fund money in this year budget to, once they finalize this report, is to get into more detail analysis. So this is kind of the overall arching umbrella. The first report. The second report is focused on more targeted areas that is going to be outlined in the first report. So yes, we have here in-house, we looked at when we worked with sustainability partners, the amount of trips that our vehicles put on the road every day. We calculated that. We looked at the carbon emission, the causes of, you know, double, tripling, handling the waste. Think about it. All of our waste get picked up from these decentralized transfer station. Once they go to the reload facility in Hilo, then they get picked up from there another time, and then they get transported to the west side. So double, tripling the waste comes at an operational cost, as you know. So, you know, what is the more efficient way? Is it possible to have a landfill on the east side so you don't have to double, triple the waste? So all that, we have a vision of trying to analyze it to get a better idea on the operational costs for now and the future. And it goes back to solid waste should be an enterprise fund. That way the people want service, they deserve the service, they vote for the service through the process, rather than being held hostage to that 4% within the, you know, the taxes. So I think, and probably if it get put out for the people to vote on, probably then you could provide whatever service you need, because the people will speak about this, and their voice will be heard. So I think from a system change, I know Erica talked about afford it and capacity, cannot afford it. I mean, you could afford anything. It depends what you want to cut or you add and within the money you have, right? I mean, it's a matter of just, you know, change in operation to stay within affordability. But I think once it become an enterprise fund, it's easier to meet the demand of the people, because you put it back to the people to voice and vote on the service they're requesting.
I'm going to have to cut that conversation off, since I don't think we have it agendized to deal with enterprise fund, but I do want it on next meeting with a lot more research. But to go wrapping, Ashley's about ready to drive off to her other meeting. Lee still had a comment, and then I'd like to get a sense for where we want to take this in terms of our EMC review of Bill 140. So Lee, go ahead.
When I first read about this in the paper, I was concerned about the 2 days, and then I saw it was only for a certain area. But being passed into a law, my concern would be, what would you prevent in the future from other transfer stations being dropped to 2 days when they have 3 days, when for whatever reason. So I've always had a philosophy of, rather than passing a law to solve a problem, if there's another way to do it, like the director mentioned, the budgeting process coming up, I think that would be a better solution rather than passing a law like this, because you don't know the consequences further down the road, and it doesn't allow wiggle room for being creative, or when circumstances change and you have to pass another law or amend it. So that was all.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we've got 45 days. We can address and give our final recommendation. The way the rules work, we can make a recommendation, thumbs up, thumbs down to the council within that 45-day window. And if we say nothing, it's neutral. It isn't a negative response. It's just not a response. So we can take up the final decision. And I feel like we still have some of the data the DEM was going to package up for both the council and for us to look at, just to get a feel for how much. I mean, Ashley says you've got 132 million, Ramsey, go. Somehow I don't think that'll pass. But I'm just wondering if we're at a position today to be able to say, yes, we support Bill 140. No, we don't support Bill 140. Do other people feel like we should take a vote, or do you want to get more information and hit this at our April meeting? Jim?
I would like to get more information. So
Anybody
postpone.
else? I'm sorry, go. Did you want to say something else, Jim?
No, I was just requesting to postpone the vote.
Okay. Dot.
Muted.
Muted. Unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. I think more information be more responsible at this point in time, rather than make a decision based on what's been said here.
Okay. Anybody else? Is that a hand in the room?
Yeah, I was hoping I could testify in person right now. First of all, I wanted to thank Ashley for doing that bill to get another day out there. Secondly, I mean,
Hold on.
oh, sorry.
What's up?
Oh, my name is Jarek Maderis, Hilo District. Thank you, Ashley, for introducing this Bill 140. I believe that we are being set up for disaster of the route we're going right now. I had a conversation with Ramsey last week over in Honokaa at the Hamakua Community Development Committee planning stuff, and I'm glad to hear him saying that he wants to let the people vote on these things, because it's super important. But more so, you know, Ashley should talk about some funding that we got from ORMAT, right, for the county. It's like $4 million. And so I think then asking for our people to pay for testing done for ORMAT at Puna Geothermal should be put on the back burner, and use that funding to fund our waste You know, because RMAT owes our community. We shouldn't be paying for testing the wastewater at Puna Geothermal.
I'm sorry, you're getting off topic. The question.
I'm on topic. It's just there is funding available. It's just not being talked about, right? $4 million for the county by RMAT, for Kalapana, where geothermal is at, close to. I'm sure we can get funding for that from there. I mean, they owe the community something. They've been doing something bad in their community for years, over 30 years. There is funding there. There's funding that they've asked for this past, the request for money for more of a killer whale recovery plan, where $3 million will go to nonprofits. We don't need those things. It's done. It's past tense. If our wastewater management and our waste department needs funding, let's tap into those fundings before making more problems, creating more taxpayers to pay more taxes. I'm a taxpayer. Everybody in here is a taxpayer. Why did the mayor give himself a raise? Why did the county council give themselves a raise if we're having this kind of problems? I think this kind of commission should push the thing on that. But yeah, thank you for my time. I think there's places we can find funding. Let's go get it instead of depending on the taxpayers to pay more right now.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. And Peter, you can figure out how to notate that. Are there any comments from the commissioners? I'm sorry? Okay. Well, then I'll say I'd like to see some more information. I think we can get creative. Ideally, we'd be moving toward more service rather than just 1 day a week. On the other hand, we shouldn't spend money that is foolish just by, oh, right, we just added on top of our current services. I think there are some creative ways to look at this. But it sounded like from testimony at council that this is a long-going pain point for Kalapana. And so how do you best address it without foolishly spending money, whether or not it happens to exist? So I guess I would agree with, I think what I'm hearing is consensus. Let's put this to the next meeting. We'll have some more information from DEM that they will be sharing with council. I assume you guys are up for testifying at the next reading of this bill. I don't know when that is, Peter, if you know. So there'll be another chance to collect information, look at it and evaluate it, and then we can decide and even write up a short response in the meeting in April, if that's okay with everybody. See nods. Okay. Then let's move on to the next.
7?
We're not yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Sorry.
The conversations going on. Anyway, so I think we'll be able to get more information in time to make a simple thumbs up, thumbs down on what we think of Bill 140. It's okay. Defer, bring it back again. Next up is Chris Loud. Are you on to talk about the pretreatment, wastewater pretreatment activity?
I am.
You are very good. Take it away, Chris.
Okay, I'm going to try to share a screen.
Lower right corner.
Oh, here it is. Sorry, guys. I'm technically challenged in case you don't know. Okay, it's switched screens. Can you guys see the presentation, Pretreatment 101?
We say a version of it, not the slide show version.
Okay, let me restart that share.
There you go.
All right. So what I understood I was to do is give you an update on where we are in the pre-treatment program. So that's what I did. I created a little PowerPoint. I think I gave this PowerPoint to the group like 2 years ago. So I used that as a base and then updated some things. So anyway, for those who don't know me, I'm Chris Laude. I am the Civil Engineer 5 and have been working on this pre-treatment program since we got the AOC about 2 years ago. All right, so the AOC requires Hawaii County to develop and then implement a pre-treatment program. We're supposed to develop it in year 1. And then year 2, which is this calendar year, we are supposed to implement it. And that includes a study and development of what they call local limits, if appropriate. And I'll get into those in some subsequent slides. Oh, and if you have any questions, just shout them out. I'll have time at the end for questions for those who like to jot theirs down and bring them up at the end. Okay, so fair to ask, what is a pre-treatment program, or what is pre-treatment? And it's the control of pollutants from dischargers at the source. So while it's still on the discharger's site before they discharge it to us. And it's a national program run by the EPA. The EPA delegates the approval authority of the local programs to DOH. So our local program is directly supervised by DOH, and we are the permitting authority. So the county would permit these industrial users. So the purposes are okay, well, that slide's old. So one of the main purposes is EPA wants us to understand who is discharging it to us and what they're discharging. After that, they want us to be able to control pollutants so that we don't get something that passes through our treatment plants untreated or causes, sorry, I'm going to close my door. Sorry, guys. Okay, I'm back. Or substances that cause interference with plant operations. So picture big oil slick that comes into the plant. The plant's not designed to treat it. It's going to stick to everything. We got to spend extra time and effort to clean it up. And then anything that's incompatible with the wastewater treatment plant processes. So what that means is the plants are generally designed to remove solids. So they can be very small solids, and when they are, they need to settle out. So something that keeps that from settling out would be like large amounts of salt water or surfactants, anything that keeps the plant from working the way it should. The other two things to make sure that we can recycle and reclaim wastewater and the biosolids, the sludges. So typical for the sludge, we got to test for dioxins every year. So right now we send all that to landfill, so it's not really an issue. But yeah, going forward, we need the ability to be able to reuse wastewater sludges and the wastewater itself. And then the most important thing is it's also intended to protect our workers and the public. right? You can't have something explosive getting into the wastewater collection system and, you know, it explodes and the manholes go flying in the air, that kind of thing. No questions? So just to illustrate it in a drawing, if you can see my cursor, the industrial users, in this case, we have a bunch of factories, they discharge into the collection system. And what we want to prevent is discharge of anything that corrodes the sewer pipes, right? Or when it gets to the treatment plant, you know, causes issues. I mentioned the explosions, toxic fumes to workers. And then once it gets to the plant, we don't want anything that interferes or passes through and ends up in the receiving waters. I like that they include the money on this, because one of the driving thoughts of EPA is, hey, if you do all this stuff, you'll reduce costs to your operation, right? If the sewer pipes aren't corroding, you don't have to replace them. If the treatment plant itself isn't getting impacted by deleterious substances coming in, that you don't have to repair it. So that is one good thing I like about that picture. All right, so we have some responsibilities. We have an AOC. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to establish legal authority to be, well, I made a mistake there. We're supposed to be the permitting authority, not the approval authority. And then we develop and implement a pre-treatment program. And there's a bunch of steps in there. One is, like I said earlier, identify and survey all of the industrial users who are discharging to us. Once we understand who they are, where they are, and what they're discharging, we control them by permitting them and the waste haulers and various commercial entities that I'll get into a little later. We're also required to go out and inspect these users, sample them, analyze their discharges to make sure that they are complying with their permit. They are supposed to monitor themselves and submit reports. So we review those and make sure that those match not only our sampling results, but also they're in compliance with their permits. If they're not, we enforce upon them. We produce and submit annual reports to DOH and EPA. We provide public education and participation, and the county is obligated to fund all these exercises. The other thing they require us is, hey, do you need local limits? Do you need to limit pollutants that are discharged to your plant in order to make sure the plant can successfully treat the incoming wastewater to the permit limitations? No questions? You guys are freaking me out. Okay, so who's going to be affected by the pre-treatment program? They drone on and on about industrial users. So one way to look at that is just like it says, if it's an industry, then it's regulated. So we have Meadow Gold, the fish factory. Those are industries that discharge to us, so we're certainly going to permit them. Also the waste haulers, because they pick up waste from outside sources and bring it to us. It also includes what most people would call commercial entities or establishments like restaurants. And although we may not place specific discharge limits on them, we want to know that they are implementing best management practices to reduce the number and severity of issues that we see from their discharges. And then I had to put a little plug in there for general public. So what this program does not directly regulate is residential users. Right, so they're not regulated, they're not permitted under this pretreatment program. They are, however, well, we are encouraged to educate them on what is appropriate to flush down the sewer through the public education and outreach portions of the program.
Chris, this is Georgine. What about resorts, hotels, condo buildings bigger than individual residents?
So there's some nuance here. If they're discharging residential, I'm trying to think of the correct term that EPA uses, but it's domestic sewage only, then in theory, they're not covered. However, there's a big caveat here, and that is the prove it, right? So as a commercial entity, they would be required to document that they are only discharging residential sewage, and that the quantity that they discharge doesn't meet the threshold for being a significant industrial user. So a little complicated answer, but yes, the hotels definitely would be permitted. All right, a little better illustration. I like flow charts because I'm kind of visual. I'm thinking impaired, so anything that helps me understand is good. And can you guys see that, or is it too small?
Small. Too small.
Man.
So that's the
Better.
Better. Okay. So the chart starts with all discharges, everyone connected to us directly or through a hauler, right? That's a user. And then from there, it splits into two divergent paths. One is the residential users who only discharge domestic sewage, pee, poop, toilet paper, maybe some other bodily fluids, but no chemical or no industrial process wastewater. It's just pee, poop, toilet paper. So a way to think of that is an accountant's office. Okay, well, it's commercial, but in this instance, that doesn't matter. What matters is, do they discharge anything other than from their bathroom? And if they do not, then they're not an industrial user. There's no permit. They go on their way. If they had an industrial or a commercial kitchen, so it's your favorite tax preparer who has a lunch counter, then they would be considered an industrial user and they would have some level of permitting. All right, bear with me, don't get seasick. I'm going to move this a little bit. So there are three categories under industrial users. There's and sorry, this is so complicated, but it's EPA loves jargon and they love acronyms and abbreviations. So they have a thing they call an SIU, a significant industrial user. And that is a user who discharges to us, either directly or through a hauler, who either discharges a large enough quantity of wastewater, which is around 20,000 gallons a day, or discharges something that has the potential to cause pass-through or interference. And under the significant industrial users, they're all going to get permitted. They have categorical users who are industries that, I don't know, there's like 13 of them, a baker's dozen that the EPA recognizes. If you're in metal plating, if you're in animal slaughtering, refineries, those kind of recognized industrial operations that you're listed as a categorical because you're in one of those categories and you have special permitting and monitoring requirements. And then there are non-significant CIUs. And again, apologies for making this so complicated, but just as an illustration, a non-significant CIU would be someone like a dentist's office, believe it or not. Because if they remove dental amalgams, they have mercury, lead, other stuff in them that we don't want discharged. So if they comply with the EPA guidelines, then they're listed as a non-significant. We still have to keep track of them, know who they are, but they get a pass because they comply with the EPA requirements individually. And then I know I've mentioned it 3 times already, but people who haul waste from industrial users are also significant industrial users because they have the ability or there's a possibility they bring a hot load into the plant and it just messes everything up. Sorry, guys. All right, and then the biggest chunk for us. So for SIUs island-wide, we have maybe 2 dozen. So it's not a huge body of people to permit. The non-significant IUs who discharge stuff other than domestic wastewater, but not in a quantity or the quality of that wastewater isn't quite enough for us to get super excited about. It would be an inconvenience, but wouldn't necessarily cause a permit violation for us. And we propose to permit these folks, which would be food service establishments, restaurants, because they produce a lot of fats, oils, and grease. Automobile repair facilities, haulers who only haul domestic waste. You know, the list goes on. So the AOC does not require us to permit these people right away. It focuses on the significant industrial users. But the vast majority of our users are going to be these non-significant users. We have issues with fats, oils, and grease in our system, and we'll be rolling out a FOG, as they call it, fats, oils, grease. We'll be rolling out a FOG program momentarily and permitting restaurants. And then the other category is they're not a significant industrial user, and they're I hate using the word insignificant, but they're not, their wastewater discharge is so small or the concentration is so low that it's not really significant to our wastewater treatment plant. We won't even notice they're there. And although we'll identify them, we're not going to require a permit. Questions?
Chris, what was that last category again? I didn't quite get it.
They are non-significant industrial users that we are not going to permit.
So give examples, please.
Oh man, you guys are putting me on the spot.
You ask for questions, I'll give them to you.
Well, Chris, wouldn't one of them be the folks who follow the dental amalgam rule? That's one, right? And then we have others that,
no,
maybe some industrial sites that follow correct BMPs. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm struggling to okay, so doctor's office that does now this is going to sound gross, but they collect specimens for pathology, right? And then what do you do with that? Well, as long as they comply with the state infectious disease requirements, then we're not going to permit them. But we will identify them. We will know where they are, and periodically we'll go by like we will with the dentist and verify that they do have the appropriate paperwork in place and they are complying with the state requirements and federal.
So for clarification, Chris, what you're saying is dentists, as an example, in the previous category would be placed in the third category if they are meeting all the state requirements.
Yes, and federal. So in reality, dentists are categorical industrial users, which is a kind of a daunting category to be in because there are a lot of requirements. However, in the categorical standards, they say if the dentist plays nice and complies with the voluntary dental amalgam rules, then they start getting kicked down the chain. So then they get turned into a non-significant CIU, and there we have the choice to say we'll permit them or not. And thus far, my opinion is, hey, we don't permit them. Right, so they go into the non-significant IUs, and if we verify that they are complying with the dental amalgam rule and they give us a certifying statement, then they're kicked out to the non-significant IU, no permit required.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Adams. Chris, I have a question. So you're saying that dentists can move from the first category to the second category to the third. If they give a compliance note, do any of the other categories in that second category also move? And then the second question I had is, how often are we checking? What's the capacity for our county? Is that like one person for the island and then they just, is it random?
Okay, so I don't know if that's a good question or an excellent question, but I have an answer for it. So I suspect it's an excellent question. Generally speaking, the federal requirements are intended to be phased in, and they're intended to be iterative. So every year we take a look and see who are our users. Do we have any new ones? And we try to bring them into the compliance program. And after we identify them, we have to figure out, well, what are you discharging to us and how much, how often? How does that impact our collection system and the plant? And I suspect some of the folks that we've identified as significant industrial users that will need a permit, will need to do their own sampling. We'll go out and sample them. We may do a round of sampling and go, what do you know? It's really not significant. And we have the ability to move them into the, and I think that should be the process. We should move them down the chain. You're less impactful to us. We're still gonna identify you. We're still gonna permit you. We're gonna monitor how your discharge impacts us. And then, next permit cycle, we may decide, it's not worth permitting because it is a burden. It's a burden for the user. It's a burden for us to keep track of all that stuff. So yeah, the idea here is not to permit, not to charge, is to gain compliance. We want our plant to be compliant. We'll take all the steps we can to get there.
Dot, you had a question.
I was going to ask him about the monitoring. What is involved with the monitoring? When they, whether they're complying to the permit rules or not.
Okay, another, I think, excellent question, because I do have an answer for it. And it ties in with the thing I said a little bit earlier, the local limits. So we are trying to figure out, I guess, is our plants, and these are for the 3 Hilo-side plants, Hilo, Hula-i-Mano, and Papa'iko, right? Those are 3 plants. And we're trying to establish that, are they compliant or not? as luck would have it, they are. They meet their current discharge limitations. So then the questions become, who's discharging something other than pee, poop, and toilet paper? What is it, how much, and how does that impact the plant? And if it turns out that the plant is not meeting its discharge limitations, or something is being discharged that that might be likely to overwhelm the plant, then we institute a limit, a discharge limitation for everyone, and say, okay, we have to cut down everybody's discharge of, I don't know, benzene, because we're approaching our permit limitation for benzene. So that local limit applies to everyone, in all the industrial users in the collection system for that plant. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
So you monitor organics then, and metals, I assume?
Yes, so EPA calls those pollutants of concern. And there is a list of, I don't know, a couple hundred, I think. And they're all the organic, organophosphate, fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, metals, hydrocarbons.
Plastics?
PFAS.
Okay, so there are two emerging pollutants of concern, classes of pollutants of concern. One are the microplastics, and then another one are the PFAS. So those are the perfluorinated chlorohydrocarbons, the forever chemicals. So EPA is working probably more diligently on standards for the PFAS, and they have a draft so you can't just grab a sample and run some kind of analysis on it. You have to use an EPA approved methodology for sampling and for analysis. So EPA has not finalized those procedures for the PFAS, right? But that's imminent. And then the next one they're working on seems to be microplastics.
Like, the point is that the pretreatment standards and wastewater standards, period, are evolving. I mean,
They are evolving, and they're
keep up with them. And Hawaii County didn't do squat relative to pretreatment. We're playing catch up, and we will continue to have to amend as new requirements from EPA come in.
Yes. And I suspect that our AOC was predicated by that. EPA started looking at DOH and saying, well, hey, how come you haven't required them to have a pretreatment program? And then probably mentioned these other chemicals coming into the spotlight, and DOH said, hey, you got to do it now. You got to get caught up. And like I mentioned before, these pollutants of concern are always, well, they change periodically. And as time goes on, and as technology improves so we can detect smaller and smaller quantities, those limits go down. So yes, in both senses, we're going to be looking for new pollutants of concern and then reducing the ones we have. The other pollutants of concern are more general wastewater things like biochemical oxygen demand, pH, total suspended solids. You know, those are also things we evaluate.
I understand that some of the wastewater treatment plants are having fog issues.
They all are.
Okay. How is that going to back up to requirements on fog dischargers like restaurants and whatnot?
So the AOC does not require us to implement a fog control program right away. And
That's oil grease.
and I can talk for hours, so somebody kicked me under the table when I take too much time. So a problem with fog is a lot of places, and EPA as well says, hey, you ought to have a fog limit of 100 milligrams per liter. And everybody goes, okay, yeah, we'll test for that. We'll see how much fog is dissolved in the water. Well, fog does not dissolve in water. That's why it's a huge problem. It builds up on everything. So that 100 milligrams per liter level is kind of meaningless. If you collect the sample properly, you'll probably never see any fog in the sample because it's all floating and you're collecting from below the surface. And if you do manage to get a sample of fog in there, it's going to be really high because one little spot of it is gonna bust the limit. So our local limits, and I'll get into this in a couple of slides from here, but our local limits evaluation did not identify fog as an issue. I think EPA stance, I mean, I've dealt with Jim Pollock at EPA when I was at CCH, and it's just a given that fog is an issue and that you have to understand who's contributing it, that they're implementing the appropriate best management procedures, like having a large grease interceptor in the parking lot, and that they're maintaining it. And then furthermore, where does that fog waste go? Here, they can send it to the landfill or it goes to specific biodiesel. So we need to make sure we close that loop, that anything that is generated is collected and then taken somewhere, not us, but definitely goes somewhere where it's properly treated.
I think just overall in terms of timing, Chris, the pretreatment requirements and wastewater requirements out of EPA are incredibly complex, convoluted, and you know, we could take forever to answer individual questions.
Yes.
So I think I'd like to ask you to move it along. Thank you.
Okay. I only have a few more slides. Sorry. So went over what our responsibilities are. Through the permit process, we'll push some requirements onto the industrial users. They have to comply with our requirements. They need to perform self-monitoring and they need to periodically submit those reports to us. We need staff to look at those reports. We also go out and inspect them ourselves periodically. Same with the waste haulers. We don't, a weakness at CCH, City and County of Honolulu, was if the hauler didn't come to us at a designated location, we're like, okay, everything's great. But the big question is, where did they go? Did they go to the next manhole up and dump in there? Did they take it to an appropriate place? Did they dump it in Kalihi Stream? You know, these are the things that we want to close the loop on and make sure we understand where everyone takes waste that they pick up. So when I gave this, and again, I'm rushing through to get us caught back up, but if you have questions, just holler. So I listed a bunch of staff that I thought we ought to have based on what we did at CCH. And, you know, we need some staff. Currently, we do have an environmental compliance specialist for East and West. And then we have a program support technician for the East side. We need more staff. We're doing a little better with the ancillary support stuff. We do have vehicles available. We could use another vehicle for the West side. We have office space. We are working on a laboratory contract. When we collect samples, there are compliance samples. So we want to separate that from our, they're regulatory compliance samples. they're to document the compliance of our users instead of us documenting our compliance with the state requirements. So we should separate that from our lab and get a third-party lab to do. We are purchasing a software package to help us manage all the users. I keep saying staff, I'm sorry, guys. We should get a collection system engineering support branch to handle things like evaluating sewer system overflows, SSOs, capacity evaluations, get a flow model. Yes, somebody has a question? Oh, maybe that's just feedback. And then real quick on the local limits evaluation. So keep in mind, local limits is looking at who's discharging, identify who the industrial users are, figure out what they're discharging, and then how's that impacting your plant. So Kule Mano and Papai'o, we don't have any significant industrial users, so it's kind of a moot point. But we did the exercise anyway, and those plants look like they're in pretty good shape with respect to what comes in versus the treatment we're able to do to it. Hilo, I want to talk a little bit about, because we tested at the plant influence, we tested at the plant effluent side. We also went into the collection system to look at who's generating what. And again, I touched on the pollutants of concerns, BOD, COD, total suspended solids. So for Hilo, so for the 2 country plants, we have final reports. For the Hilo plant, I left it in a draft because we have some unanswered questions. We collected samples out in the collection system. Those look pretty normal, not supporting the need for local limits. But when we looked at the headwork samples, this is actually at the plant, they looked a little off for a few pollutants of concern. Ammonia, BOD, sorry for the typo, TSS, basically. So although the levels were high enough that we should start thinking about maybe we need a local limit, they weren't alarmingly high. They were, abnormal, and they didn't match the collection system. So for Hilo, before we do a final report, we should establish what proportion of those contaminants are being generated by the industrial users versus the domestic users, because they both discharge those pollutants. I envision that we'll have our permits in effect by the time we get around to doing the additional samplings for Hilo. So we should look at, hey, did the permits, which are going to include lower limits for BOD, TSS, and ammonia, do they affect those results? Another thing is most plants receive at least some of their influent from gravity systems. Hilo does not. All of the influent into Hilo comes from Pua Pump Station. Pua Pump Stations gets pumped sewage from the other pump stations within Hilo. So we need to understand how that affects those parameters. One is we're running it through impellers, we're making it finer and finer, and that probably increases the BOD and TSS. And it may have a long enough residency time in the collection system to increase the amount of ammonia. And then we'll redo the field sampling and analysis this year before the end of this calendar year. And I think Dorothy asked, we're going to redo this. This is an annual thing. We need to annually look at how are we doing? Are there new users we need to be aware of? Has anybody changed their industrial discharge, added a new industrial process or some BMP that improves it even?
Chair? I have a question. Commissioner Ocasio, so this, Chris, what is
Yes.
our capacity and what is our capacity for lab testing? And is it on island? Can you give a little bit of analysis of our testing, the actual testing?
How much time do I have? I'll try to make it short. So our existing lab probably can handle, well, okay, let me start by saying the pollutants of concern are kind of traditional wastewater parameters. They're nothing especially technical, and it's their analyses they're already doing. So they can do at least the sample analyses. We need to collect the samples, and again, we should probably have some extra staff to do that. And so a thought here is you collect a sample from an industrial user and it doesn't match their sampling, and it indicates a permit exceedance. What do? Well, you try to get them to come back in the compliance. A reality probably is they take a look at the money pro and con, and what if they decide to sue? And if they decide to sue, they request all our documents, and now our lab is, the operation of the lab is impacted by that. Whereas if you just say, hey, we're gonna hire a contract lab to do these analyses for us, then you separate and protect our lab from that extra load. And we don't have the lab staff available to go out and sample our industrial users at this point. And especially in the first year, you want to collect more samples than are required, because you definitely don't want to have somebody in significant non-compliance. And then, like we discussed earlier, the more samples you get, the better idea you have of what their discharge is and whether it actually needs to be permitted, right? So you could drop some people out by collecting extra samples at the start. So I understand there is a lab on Gila, on the Big Island that we could use. There are labs on Oahu, and shipping the lab samples over there is an extra step, but it's something that's done routinely.
Okay, we need to wrap up because biological break time is heading toward us. Are there any other questions for Chris?
I have a quick question. I noticed that a lot of your monitoring is happening in Hilo. Do we have the same sort of system in Kona?
Another excellent question. So the AOC just focuses on the 3 heloside plants. Okay, so one approach would be, okay, well, that's all we're going to do. Logistically, that's a little difficult, because then other residents in the county will go, well, how come they're permitted and I'm not? Or how come I have to pay extra for all of this and they don't, and they're just outside of Hilo? And another point is, it doesn't matter if they are not directly connected to us. If they use a hauler and the hauler comes to us, then they fall under our permitting. So it makes much more sense to say, hey, it's the whole island. And that's what we did. Our approach is it's going to be the entire island. We're going to start in Hilo, kind of work the kinks out, and then this year start rolling it out in Kona side. So what that means is we have to spend some time to identify all of the non-residential users. We have to go by and visit them, see what they're discharging, and make the evaluation on whether they are a significant industrial user who needs permit, or a non-significant that we also want to keep track of, which would be restaurants as well.
Okay. I'm not going to ask my question because we're running out of time.
Well, what is it? I can email you.
Yeah, relative to rulemaking ordinances, the process of getting this all down, there needs to be changes in the county code as well as DEM admin rules. Will they be coming to EMC in what time frame?
Yes, I'm working with Chris Barber, our new acting chief, to corral those things, and I'll leave it to him to respond to you in an email on when that'll happen.
Okay, great. All right, everybody, it's been a long time. Let's take a bio break until I'll make it 5 minutes or so. So we're back at 10:55. Ramsey's got to disappear. Oh, and the room will, you'll all be kicked out. And Hilo at noon. So poor Jennifer, I think I might ask if you could come back, or at least if there's some short question you would like, or comments, people who've looked at your project to come on, but maybe next month will be a better time, if that's okay with you.
That's fine. Our comment period is ending though on April 19th, so it would be, but I could come back and give a summary of the second draft, and if the commission wants to just provide any feedback prior to the 19th for draft one, that'd be fine.
Also, just everyone individually is more than welcome to pass on comments, and should now. I believe you were all sent the link to the information, and if there's some special place, we'll get that information out to you. And yeah, we'll try to catch up on our April meeting with you.
Okay, and I can share this PowerPoint presentation that I put together for the commission to. It's just a little bit more summarized than reading the full draft. That's easier.
Great. Thank you very much. Everybody, bio break. Be back in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. It looks like we've got forum again, although we're missing Erica. Let's move on to item 6, which is reports and correspondence, and basically Ramsey's show. So we have 1 hour left of his time and of the room in Hilo. So take it away, Ramsey, if you're there. Or Craig, if he wants to start off with the solid waste.
Yes, we can. And I think you're right. Craig could start with the solid waste as per the agenda.
Well, legislative update is the first sub-item there.
I'll let you guys, Peter done a good job listing the status of the legislative bills that we've been monitoring. If you guys have a question, I can answer. Otherwise, I think Peter had done a great job given day-to-day updates. Does anybody have a question on any of them?
Erica, I assume you're following the cesspool ones. They look like they were waiting for WHAM. Are hearings being scheduled? Erica or Ramsey?
Sorry, I didn't know if that was for me or Ramsey. I'm sure Ramsey knows also, but yeah, the next I think stage is to go to WHAM. They have passed up to now. I think that we're going to take a more kind of in-depth dive during the when we meet as the PIG group to go more in depth of like what the remaining bills are. So as to not take time here to do that because there's so many. Yeah.
That was really the only legislative question I had, is didn't know, had it run into a wall, or is it just a matter of time to get things scheduled? But otherwise, yeah, Peter, you do a fantastic job summarizing those things. So Craig, do you want to tell us what's going on with solid waste?
See if I can attach the Liz, Peter, could you attach the spreadsheet? Yes, so I'll just update the. What's that, Peter?
You sent one? I don't know if I got one.
It's the mulch spreadsheet.
We'll look for it.
Then I'll just go over the so we recently had the household hazardous waste pickup collection event in Waimea on March 2nd, which had 285 customers and 750 gallons of UMO was collected. And then March 3rd in Pahoa with 286 customers and 1,560 gallons of UMO was collected. So all events were successful in collecting UMO and other hazardous waste.
Right. So as far as I know, we were not sent an update of waste collected at the transfer
station. For the green waste, yeah.
Anything else to update? I understand the solid waste operational study is, oh, there it is.
There it is.
So what's the headers on that? Is that all green waste?
Yeah, so that's the green waste collected at EHOF, WEHOF, transfer stations, and the mulch delivered to EHOF and Kealakekua.
Okay, maybe that's something you can send us, Peter.
Oh, hold on, Peter. I'll resend it.
You put it in the chats.
Basically, the question is always, were there hiccups, problems? Everything's moving fine. I haven't been here. I don't know if
yeah,
it's caught on fire lately.
Yeah, everything's moving forward.
Okay, great. And I assume you'll have some commentary in with expanding Kalapana to collect some recyclables, if that is indeed going to come up in the next version of it. The next item number 3 is wastewater division projects, and thank you to Chris Lottie if he's still on for the presentation. It's a lot to swallow. It's a complex process, and it's going to require a heck of a lot of education to the community, both the commercial operations as well as individuals. And Lord knows what's being poured down kitchen sinks. Any rate, Ramsey and crew, if you want to move into the wastewater division projects and updates.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. As you all heard, the presentation on the pre-treatment. I know we still have promised, Georgianne, I know you and Chris have started some time ago to look into the ordinances and the code, and we need to get with Chris Laude and find out the status of when he's going to give you a draft. We do appreciate your comments. I believe you have given us some comment on the possible changes to the code and the ordinances, but I believe the ball in our court, and we'll make sure that Chris Barber and Chris Laude give you some update on that as well.
Well, I think that the biggest policy issues are the idea of adding a new fee for sewer.
Adding a fee in addition to strengthen our codes and ordinances to navigate through the requirements. And I think that's a major task that we need to deliver on. So I think it's very important to, as we do the code change, and as we have been talking about, is try to capture as much as we can within that code change. It may go beyond the pre-treatment, but we need to get to that and put it in front of the public and county council.
Yeah, I'm just saying, include that when you guys are ready.
Yeah. Wastewater, Pahala Nalehu, who do we have from the wastewater division? Chris Barber, do you want to take a shot at him and introduce yourself, or do you? Or is...
Sure. So my name is Chris Barber. I'm the current acting chief. So the current projects, our division is just really laser focused on compliance. We have 3 active AOCs. We received the signed countywide AOCs, the signed executed countywide AOC back today from EPA. So, this, that AOC itself is, culmination of a couple of years of negotiation and work with EPA, to kind of to develop something that fit our community with our, the necessary improvements, repairs, and, so that is active. So the other AOC, like Ramsey mentioned, is the AOC to close the Nalehu and Pahala cesspools that's been around for a long time. So we're progressing. So Pahala, we are moving the collection system ahead in efforts to try and utilize some grant funding. We're looking, the goal for that is to get out and get out to bid by Q1 of next fiscal year. And then as far as and we're currently working on finalizing the environmental information documents, as well as working on initial design concepts for the treatment facility. So Nalehu is going through the environmental process. We're working on getting our environmental documents updated for the current alternatives and getting those out for public review. And then our Hilo project, Hilo, that is going to we're on track to bid that project the first week or so of May. So that project has been a large endeavor for this county. It's probably one of the largest renovation projects to a facility that we've had in quite some time. And so that is looking at bidding the early part of May, and that is on track. And then, we have other various projects that are within the AOC that are also continuing through design. We have Hawai'i force main replacement, which is a AOC project in the countywide AOC, and that we're looking at getting bid ready plans in Q1 of next fiscal. So a lot of things in progress. So we have some large planning initiatives as well. So we have the integrated wastewater master plan. So currently, we're working, part of our countywide AOC says that we need to define sewer service areas. So currently our team, with the community input that we've gotten, is really working to develop those areas and do it in such a way that positions our county for success. Because I think everybody, we can all agree that on the sewer side, we really do need to expand our ratepayers. We need to provide, right, as a county, we should be providing sewer to the most amount of people that we can. So that's really what our team's focused right now is on the integrated wastewater management plan, is how do we as a county, with our resources, provide sewer to the most amount of people that we can. And so that's what we're working on. We just finished up our first round of public engagement. We're working to conceptualize and put together our second round, and which should address the comments we received in the first round. And then our other plans, PUACO and those are also in progress with draft versions of the various documents, and also in public outreach stages as well. So I guess I would open it up to questions about potentially maybe some specific projects that people might have an interest in.
Just a quick, oh, sorry, I didn't raise my hand, did I? Are we going to pursue funding possibilities with the Clean Water Act and that sort of thing?
So funding possibilities with Clean Water Act, do you have any specific funding sources that you're referring to within that?
Well, the general, what do they call it? AOC for all of the county.
So current funding sources that we're actively pursuing is, state revolving fund, which, as we know, that is a low interest, long-term loan that's issued through, our, Department of Health. So we're pursuing that. Our strategy, that program has approximately 20 million available for each of the counties, each year. So with respect to our project budgets, it's funding that's great to have, don't get me wrong, but it's not a huge, endless pot of funding. We've also received in the final versions of the congressional directed spending tables, the community project tables, 2 of our projects were funded. I think it totals about 2.1 million. And that is grant funding. So that's a huge win for our division. And that would be for the Wailoa sewer pump station electrical control upgrades there. And then also for Onakaka, our zoo pump station facility. That is what we would call a CAN pump station. So Getting that replaced will greatly improve the safety to operators. And it was also installed in the early 70s, late 60s. So it's, you know, it's done its time. It's time to replace it. And so that's great. I'm also working on a feasibility study for some funding on the Kona side for Kealakekee. You know, that's matching funds. So, you know, we get a grant and then we also have to come up with a portion of that from county funds. And then we're also working on figuring out this, the coronavirus funding for the Pahala project. We've programmed some funding for that as well, pending the results of our public consultation with the environmental document. So right now I have 4 pots of funding with respect to the Clean Water Act. Well, no, 3 pots of funding with respect to Clean Water Act and 1 pot of funding that comes from Treasury and its coronavirus relief. That's not with respect to the Clean Water Act, to specifically answer your question.
Mahalo.
So just to clarify, Erica was asking a question in chat about the AOC, all the AOCs. We have the countywide AOC
yes.
agreement of consent, which basically says EPA, if you don't do this, we're going to sue you, Hawaii County. So the countywide one has been signed?
Yeah, it's executed with EPA. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I'm asking Peter to send us a copy of that. I mean, it really lays out the whole plan of where you're going and what you're going to do. Not even just to fix the broken problems, but also where we're going to move to in terms of integrated planning. So I think it's a good template for all of us to have a copy of. So anyway, if you want all of the AOCs, I suppose we can send you all the AOCs if they haven't been, or if they sit on your DEM home, Ramsey.
Well, I think that's it's a good idea. Since we have our DEM website, we're gonna, if they not already there, we should create a directory, and you guys, anyone could access these public documents. I know EPA site have it on.
Yeah, they're a pain in the butt to get to find anything. So if you could lay out,
sure. We'll designate an area within our website. We just received it this morning, so we'll share it with you, and then we'll put it on the web as well.
That'd be great.
Chair, I have a question.
Sure. Laura.
This is for Chris. Hi, Chris. Nice to meet you.
Him as well.
And is there any attention being paid to the collection system repairs as a whole, and then in particular saltwater deterioration and intrusion along the tidal zones?
Yeah. So for one, right, there's the compliance, right? Our division is focused on compliance. So a part of our AOC is the assessment of our collection system. So we have approximately 120 miles of collection system. Per the AOC, we need to assess using NASCO assessment tools, that collection system within 5 years. So currently we are on track to meet that. And that assessment is being recorded within our asset management system. So we have a couple different ways that we are physically repairing the saltwater intrusion issues. So we have grouting capability within our sewer maintenance group. And so what they'll do is they'll go and they'll grout areas where the pipe is leaking and whatnot. And then, they'll go back and they can also do a trenchless repair method. So that's one way that we're approaching it. At this point in time, we haven't collected enough information to put together larger capital improvement jobs. You know, say that there's a mile of pipe that's really leaky and really bad that we need to replace. You know, we were really trying to finish this integrated plan first, so that if that pipe needs to be increased in size, or, you know, as we connect more cesspools, we can, you know, kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. We can leverage that. And then, you know, so that's what we are currently doing. And then with respect to the tidal areas, you know, yes, in Kona, I know Ali'i Drive is a significant concern. And, you know, that is a focus for our collection system group when they finish up some current projects that they're working on.
So is there anything, I'm just hearing of concerns, especially in Kilkaha around Pua Pump Station and especially with saltwater intrusion. And so I guess asking for a little bit more information on that and clarification, maybe Ramsey, just in terms of any issues that you're aware of with that saltwater intrusion, or it's, I'm thinking it's because of the tidal zone and then that saltwater damaging the pipes a lot more and it having an effect on the pump stations. And if we're addressing that. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, they doing landscaping and grass mowing in the front. So if you guys hear them mower, my apology. Yeah, the reason I have not heard anything pertaining to that area. We just had a community meeting with them just last week. If you have information about particular sewer line, please share it with us. Okay. There was some misinformation out there. I just want to make sure we get ahead of that misinformation and communicate. That's the reason we met with the community to make sure that, you know, especially most of the community on cesspool, as you know, so they're not connected to sewer. There's dry sewer that Department of Hawaiian Homeland constructed. We have a force main that comes from the pump station to our facility, and we use, you know, sodium hydroxide to kind of for odor control and corrosion. So yeah, if you have any particular, please share them with us.
Okay. Thank you.
Erica, you had a question?
I think Ramsey kind of touched on that. I was just kind of, that was originally for Chris. He was speaking more of the actual piping and the lines. And I was just curious if the pump stations were also included in that, under that compliance realm that he was speaking towards. But I think that both Ramsey and Chris maybe answered that question. But if that was the question, is under these AOCs and under all of these compliance things, are all aspects of the utility being looked at, from collection and pump station all the way to the actual treatment utility and even the back end of that? Or is it just one compartmentalized component of the entire utility itself that's being looked at? I too have gotten some concerns from community members regarding pump stations specifically, and the potential of water inundation. And then obviously that what goes along with that is that inundation has to also go somewhere, which means that it's either going to groundwater or to our shorelines. Yeah,
there's no doubt that we get I&I into our system, especially when we get storms, king tides, high water, sea level, you know, with the you know, with these tsunamis and these particular, you know, events, and that's when we see the high INI in our system. That's why part of the collection system is what Chris was alluding to, is to analyze our 120 miles of sewer. We have televised some of the sewer collection. We have videos. It's a matter of just sitting down and analyze and review the tapes and mark out the hot areas that we believe we need to either replace segments or go in there and maintain it. So that is part of the stuff that we're looking into on the agenda. Our consultant, we just had a meeting with a consultant that was hired by EPA, and they did recommend about 5 to 7 projects as far as collection system. And they determined probably around $77 million just to rehab the high priority needed collection systems that we need to pay attention to. So that's going to be also looked at and forecasted within our other projects. But they did identify a cost under, eventually is going to be kind of under the AOC, but it's O&M, operation and maintenance projects, that were not identified as, you know, the major projects, critical project within the AOC. But there was identification made.
And I also want to note that the AOC itself in our sewer collection system maintenance program requires that the county repair these NASCO level 5s within 36 months of identification. So, you know, there will be, as part of the AOC, a programmatic, you know, repair effort to really reduce that INI and make it, you know, take care of the issues, so to speak.
Right. It is looking at the previous conversation that we just had regarding the pre-treatment and hearing that these same pump stations are the ones that are being backed up with the fog or all these other, you know, emerging contaminants that are high for the treatment plant. Are these same contaminants high for the surrounding environment that they're also leaching into? And I know that thresholds for environmental purposes are really, I mean, I am on the monitoring end of that discussion, and I get that those are challenging discussions to have regarding thresholds and EMCs and how those should or could be monitored into the future. But
yeah, hopefully with all the programs that we're trying to put together, from pre-treatment to programmatic sewer collection connection from cesspool to sewer, as we work on the cesspool master conversion plan, in addition to the integrated wastewater management plan, we're working on to create that roadmap and analyzing the current collection system capability from hydraulic modeling to understand, you know, the capacity within these lines, to identify the leaking segments that allow infiltration and be able to schedule it, forecast it, budget it, and try to secure the fund for it. That's part of the roadmap for this whole wastewater. And it's all coming together. It's all connected. Hopefully, we have done so much within the last few years. And my take is hopefully by the end of this year, we could have everything connected and the following year, we should start looking at policies and procedures that could be driven out of that wastewater integrated management plan. Because once is you have to identify the falls and you know the holes that within the system and see how we could create policies and procedure that could allow us to be more firm of people that dispose of fog in their system, that because that require high maintenance. Our guys usually get calls because you know sewer collection system are clogging because of the grease, right? It create sewer clogging, and so all of that being put together, and hopefully, like I said, we try to play catch up. We never had it when we started, but we're gonna have a way better system than what we had, and hopefully that will continue.
Any other questions? Other discussions you want to have? I know, just looking at the topics we've got here. Hilo in particular, or the different plans for the integrated wastewater management and the public engagements, particularly around cesspool conversion. I think we're going to plan on an April presentation by Corolla on all the information that's been gathered from the public and where things stand. And I'll be checking in with you, Ramsey, on whether or not you guys are ready for that. But I think we'll be at a point of having had the first rounds of public engagement, and so that would probably be a good time to hear about.
I think it's going to be pushed back to July.
Oh, July now. Okay.
Yeah. April is too soon. We just had it last month. So we want to be able to give the public more time, and also to collect more information that our consultant need.
Okay. Okay. I don't want to push people before they're ready.
Yeah, back-to-back meeting, it doesn't help till we give them enough time. And I think we need to be able to engage the public more. Some of these meetings, we have a handful of people just showed up. And I think we need to do a better job, which we did. I believe we did, but I don't know how else we could get the people to participate, because it is very important subjects. And we need to make sure the message goes out.
Well, I guess we should encourage each of us as representatives of the 9 districts to communicate out to our networks to make sure that they're aware of these meetings and they're attending and they're important, and don't just wait until December 2050 and then worry about it. Now's the time to be thinking and corresponding. And I think it is wonderful the DEM is trying to engage the public, but it's hard. Everybody's busy. They don't really understand this complicated stuff unless you say, you want me to write a check for what? So yeah, some kuleanas on our part as well as EMC. So I appreciate all the work you've done and the success you've had in crafting AOCs that seem reasonable, except when you actually start doing this stuff, I'm hoping there'll still be the good relations to be able to negotiate against reality. I just say one comment, I'm still struggling with it. There seems to be this tension in my mind between wanting to sewer the whole county versus dealing with the technical economic feasibility of this varied geography that we've got to deal with and the capabilities of individuals to make changes, of finding place-based solutions that might not be a big honking sewer line going everywhere all over this island. And how do you balance the practicalities with the need for the best treatment, which would be sewage, but also the most costly to get it set up against the needs of the individual locations.
Yeah, we have, there's no
balance is a
commitment.
challenge.
Yeah, I know, I got your email. I just want to make it clear. There is no commitment from us or EPA or Department of Health to sewer the entire county. Let's make it clear. Because number one, it's nobody could afford it. As you see in Puna District, $11 billion. You know, so I don't know where the idea comes from where we're going to sewer the entire county. What we negotiated is to come up with a programmatic sewer expansion plan within the sewer service area. So, so we have 7 waste treatment plants. These treatment plan has certain capacity. So what you do is you define the sewer service area the plants were designed for when they were constructed. And the commitment was back then when they were constructed is to make sure that it serves the people that was designed for. Unfortunately, if you look at our record, no connections has been made since these plans were constructed. It was very, very minimal. So EPA said you guys were under stipulated agreement for Hilo to connect. Kealokehe Community Development Plan that was done in 2005, 2006, projected that in 20 years, the entire area will be connected. Well, 20 years later, there's no connection. So the idea, we need to manage these county sewer service area. And as we looking into the integrated waste management plan, people that want to convert from cesspool to sewer connection, they'll be given the option, priority option, if they are within the sewer service area. So 80% of the entire county probably going to be on IWSs. So I don't know, and that's you know, it's a provable system by Department of Health because most of the areas we don't have waste treatment plants. Bahala Nalehu, they're going to have their packaged waste treatment units, and that's what's going to be constructed. But the whole reason we're doing these 2 plans together to create the roadmap and give our constituents options, the cheapest option for them to be either connect or go with an approved system that Department of Health is going to approve. So there's no, I don't want you to start any rumors that we sewer in the entire county, Georgia. We're not.
All right, I give up. I just say I think there's still this tension between, I don't, you know, just sewer. You guys build my sewer and then I don't need to worry about it. And the reality of how much the options cost. And that's hard for individuals to get their brain around. And maybe why you're not getting the attendance you are at the meetings. But again, I ask everybody on the EMC to think about how you can help communicate and get people in to right. Learn and listen. Anything else in the wastewater arena that you want to get across to us?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw one thing out. You know, I know, you know, something I've observed here is that, you know, this concept of sewer, right? It's this regulatory, right, requirement. It's regulatory, or this concept of wastewater management. And I know that, you know, when I'm talking with people and working with people, I really try to just, I'm trying to rebrand a little bit and just say, look, our global population is exploding, right? waste generation is increasing. I know that, you know, my cousins on the solid waste side, they're seeing their numbers increase. And so, yeah, I just think it's going to be important for us as a team to just start rebuilding that kind of concept of this. It's not necessarily regulatory. It's how we, you know, mitigate our growth, right, is globally. And, you know, we're just a small part of a much bigger picture. And, you know, that I just wanted to throw that in as we've been doing these integrated studies and we've been doing public outreach and talking to people. That's one very clear thing is sewer is this regulatory, you know, requirement that we're getting shoved into. And in my mind and, you know, my vision for our department, it really isn't. It's just how we're dealing with the population growth, right? It's how we're dealing with our you know, our waste. It's just something we have to do is part of our growth. So anyway.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay,
I'm going to chime in really. I'm sorry, Georgina.
Go ahead.
Corey, I love this comment. Try having developers pay for a wastewater impact fee. I think that, Chris, the issue is that we see the development happening in huge mass areas where we're concentrating development and still having individual wastewater systems, the approved technology for these areas. And most of the time, there are areas that are right next to a shoreline that are also drinking potable groundwater. And so if you take Hawaiian Paradise Park, for example, the answer, again, I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning, the answer cannot continually be, we can't afford it. Ramsey says it's $11 billion to deal with KL. Yet we're still going to allow developers to come and develop businesses in KL. We're still going to develop homes in KL and continue to grow. And we're not going to have a forethought of advancing more than individual wastewater systems. Like, I think that that's the gap that Georgina is talking about, in that our growth is exploding and we are going to continue to grow in these areas. And at some point, forethought has to be more than individual wastewater systems and the dollar being put back onto homeowners. Like, I think that we're here partly because of poor development practices and the way that we've parceled out all of these areas. You know, you look at Pu'ako, and to assume that Pu'ako is going to put individual wastewater systems with appropriately sized leach fields that are not directly impacting groundwater, it's not, engineering wise, it's not even possible. And I just think that there are gaps in these thinking mechanisms. Like, it can't be, we can't do this because of the dollar. I mean, I just see so many doors closing that are concerning, because if the only way for a larger than individual wastewater collection system to take place is either communities come together and try to build it, or a county comes together and tries to build it, or a developer. But outside of that, there's no other way to get large collection systems into the ground. And so what are we doing about where really large areas that, if they were to be built in modern day society today, they would require more treatment? You would have to have more treatment if KL was built all at once, or HPP was built all at once. So I'm sorry, I don't want to be on my soapbox, but I get what Georgina is asking, is that it can't, I mean, these hard statements of we can't afford it, we can't do this. I really, really want to urge the broader thought process of what is in our system right now that's not allowing us to navigate around this or over it or through it or change a law. But I appreciate what Ramsey and all of the wastewater division team is doing, and it's come so far with all of these studies. And there's still a lot of frustrating parts about it.
Well, it also goes back to the general plan and the frustration of how do you influence development either by the individual planning areas or the general plan in total. It's thinking that bigger picture, long-term things we've got to fix that we screwed up in the first place and things that we're going to allow to turn into bigger disasters. So life is complicated. So that's our conclusion for the day. No. Anyway, wish you the best. Keep talking, keep thinking, keep getting creative. And I think you've got a leader in Ramsey who is very creative in looking at every avenue for solving these problems and trying to get it together. So future agenda items. We're going to tackle Bill 140 again at the next meeting. I'm going to have Jennifer Navarra come back. I'm sorry, we'll send you the packet of information that she's got on that. I would like, if I can get with Stephen Holmes and Ramsey and who knows who, talking more about this concept of enterprise fund for both wastewater and solid waste. We had put the recommendation into the council regarding wastewater as an enterprise fund, but I think I need to understand more how that can work. And I think it's something maybe the EMC can do more to influence how we get some steady, sustainable funding to do all the things that we need to do to play catch up, to maintain, and to build out. In managing waste, because waste is not going to zero. There'll always be waste, and there's a lot to do to keep it from going elsewhere. So if there's anything else that people want to try and make sure we get on the schedule, is that Jim?
Yes, Georgine. So as far as trying to get the pig to meet, we haven't been successful yet, but Steve Holmes has said that he's really interested in having a discussion with us, probably on the same thing you just mentioned. So you're certainly welcome to attend the meeting. I hope
no,
we
I
can
can't. You have to keep it under quorum number of members. So you've got your pig and it's got 4 members on it, as I recall. So do whatever you guys want to do. And we'll hear from you next time. That's already on the agenda to be agendized next meeting. So go for it.
But I misunderstood. I thought anyone could attend as long as they're just attending it as a citizen. Is that not correct?
It gets complicated. I don't know if Sinclair or whoever from corporate counsel is there, but if 5 voting members of EMC are in a room together, we have to be public. Is that right?
Reggie, can you repeat the question? This is Sinclair Solis Ferguson, Deputy Corporation Counsel.
We have a pig permitted in a whatever the I stands for group.
Permitted interaction group, yeah.
Interaction. Sorry. So there are 4 members from the EMC that are appointed to that. And to bring in a 5th member of EMC.
We can't.
So there.
Even if they,
I'll rely on you guys to give me feedback when you report to the EMC.
So yeah, so you guys have 7 members, right? Or 9?
On EMC, we have 8 right now, I think.
No, but you're it's a 9-member commission, right?
Yes, it's 9.
Yeah, sorry. So 4 is the max. You can't have 5. You got to have 4. You can have less than a quorum on a permitted interaction group. So only 4 members of the commission can be part of that. You can add members from the community if you want, but not commission members.
So you can report out back to EMC, and I'll be sitting here listening to you and asking questions, but I can't really participate as a 5th member or even taking off my EMC hat. I can't take it off apparently. So
yeah, so I mean, just the summary of the EMC. So I saw there's a status update. And sorry, I was just taking a call right when this happened, but you know, you form it at the first meeting and you define the scope of the members, and then the second meeting, you report whatever their findings and recommendations are. And then the third meeting, you make any decisions, if any. So was today the report from the permitted interaction group on cesspools and sanitation?
No, no, it's coming next meeting.
Okay. So the status update is what?
It'll be given next meeting. They haven't had a chance to get together.
So the status update is just when they're going to give the report.
Right.
Okay, and that's fine.
Did you get introduced at the last meeting? I forget.
No.
So this is Sinclair Salas Ferguson, who is our new Deputy Corporation Counsel representative on EMC. So Sinclair's a good guy. I've had fun before with him. And he came back. So hey.
Well, yeah, happy to work with everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Georgine.
So again, as always, if you want something on the agenda for next time, let me and Peter know, and we will try to incorporate that. Okay, announcements. The next meeting is April 24 at, is it at Hilo? Because you're in Hilo now. I don't know where the meeting is. Peter.
Kona.
Okay, the next meeting is in Kona. Oh, that's right. I'm reading the wrong thing. Never mind. Just FYI, the general plan comments are still open until April 1st. So if you want to go in and put the kind of things we were talking about in there somewhere, you've got that opportunity. And I am working with Harvey Stone, Jennifer Navarra, and Nick Risnick on doing a waste reduction workshop as part of the Sustainability Summit that is, oh, when I found the date, now I forget where it was. I think it's now scooted to May. But the purpose is to get a crowd together who know waste, and let's talk about some of the issues, what's happening and what's possibly going to happen, how we can continue dialogue on a community basis to reduce waste. So I will report on that. We're having our meeting on the 8th of April. So I'll report out whatever came from the workshop next time. Any other announcements from people?
I will not be able to attend the April meeting, but I'll be reading the minutes.
Okay, okay. Anything else? Could I get a motion to adjourn? It's been a very fulsome meeting. Thank you all.
I move to adjourn.
Okay. We've got several, so catch one of those, Peter, or two of those. All in favor? Say
aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Laura, can you meet next Friday?